Today we're going to talk about 8 ways you can convert more sales on your discovery calls if you have calls with your potential clients to see if they're a good fit for your coaching or your service, and how to prevent ghosting, because these steps kind of also serve as a way to prevent indecision and the call just kind of falling flat and no decision being made. So for those of you who are live with me, forgive my hair. I was just working out and it's one of those days where you have to just roll right into the day. So we're going to get started and we're going to talk about what you can do to improve your conversion rate. So the first thing is, remember that if your discovery call right now doesn't have a structure, that's the first thing we got to figure out. Because if it just is turning into a pick your brain call, no decision made, no next steps, no clear offer, that's the first problem. But if you are following a structure, and if you're using, like, for example, I use a discovery call roadmap with my clients and they are able to practice and they're able to see examples of discovery calls. If you already have that part down, or maybe your certification school, if you're a coach, gave you an overview of how to lead those calls, what you want to do at the end is make sure that if someone still needs to think about it, which is totally fine, you schedule a follow-up. Why? Because obviously if they want to take some time to think about it, it's a disservice to leave someone just thinking about it forever, right? It's either you can decide to do it right now, or you could say, no, it's not the right time right now. I don't want to do it. And that's totally fine either way. But it's a disservice as a service provider to leave someone more confused, more overwhelmed, more indecisive than before the call, right? So one way you can manage that is if someone needs to think about it and you found out what it is that they need to think about, that clear communication is important, because if they need to think about something that is a question they had about the program that you never were able to uncover or be able to address, then it's going to be hard for them to make a decision, right? So the first thing is, if they need to think about it, try to find out what they need to think about. What is it that is their decision-making criteria, which will bring me to one of the other steps I'm going to share. And then once you know that and you've been able to address what you can, schedule a follow-up, because they may need to think about it for 2 days and just let it digest, and that's fine. But what you can say is, what I don't want to do is leave you in a forever indecision. So, would it be cool with you if we scheduled a follow-up in 2 days or in 24 hours, and you can ask any final questions. You can let me know, if you've had a chance to think about it and what you'd like to do going forward. And so that's the first step, is leave it with the next step. Leave the call leave the end of the call with the next step, right? Even if the next step is they decide no on the call, that's fine too. Or if they decide yes, they want to do it, but they need to figure out finances, or they need to just check something or whatever, that's fine. But have that next step planned, and plan it while you're still on the call. Don't just, leave with no clear next step. The second thing is giving full permission on your discovery calls for clear communication, for them bringing up their concerns and their hesitations, for them bringing up any questions they have, and full permission for them to say no is really important too. So just make sure that at the beginning of your call or throughout, you're just letting them know, even if you feel this is not a fit for you, I won't be offended. You can always let me know. It's either a yes or no. I just don't want to leave you in forever confusion, right? So giving that full permission will allow for more clear communication, which will allow you as their coach or as their service provider to address what's really on their mind, instead of it being this kind of surface level, I just want to gather more information type of call, right? The third tip is to make sure you find out their decision criteria, meaning if someone's saying, I need to think about it, I got to look at my options, I'm trying to decide what my next moves are, it's a good idea, if you want to help someone make a decision that's right for them, even if it's not your program, you will want to find out, what are you using to base that decision on? What is your decision-making criteria? What is really important to you? What would make the decision no-brainer? Find that information out, because how will they know what the right decision is if they don't have a clear, what are they basing it on, right? If you don't know that, and if they don't know that, then they are going to feel overwhelmed and they aren't going to make a decision, and they probably will ghost you. So finding out what is this being based on? And a lot of times people will say, well, it's a gut feeling. It's like if feels like a fit or not. And that's fine. But like, what does that entail? What is your, how do you want to feel when you're doing a program or you're working with a coach? What triggers that feeling for you? How do you feel the best, like the most supported? How do you learn best? Because that will help me as your coach and service provider know what you're looking for, right? So that's the third thing, is really open up. What are they basing this decision off of? How will they know if it's the right choice? And then the next tip number 4, is create some form of understanding their timeline. So it's a good idea to ask like, hey, what is your timeline for wanting to get started on this goal, wanting to get support with it, and why? And a lot of times people will have enough urgency within their own goal or wanting to do something that, fast action bonuses and early bird pricing and things like that maybe aren't even necessary. But sometimes it may help in your business as well if you run time sensitive like bonuses or promos or things like that, to just drive that extra little bit of, okay, if you get started now, the pros are these things, right? So if you've never thought about in your business, why is it that they should join your program now? Why is it that they, their goal is important enough to start now, and you've never incorporated that into your marketing? You may want to put that into your marketing, because it may help when you are in the sales conversion stage, people coming more prepared, more pre-qualified, more understanding why this is important to them at this time, if you've been putting out good content to drive that curiosity within them, that like, hey, I don't want to keep putting this on hold. I don't want to keep putting off my goals, or letting life get in the way, or letting time get in the way. So creating some clarity around what the heck is the timeline, and how important is this goal to you, and how urgent is it, and why or why not, can be a useful thing to find out, because it is going to help you understand them better. And even if they're like, hey, legit, I can't start because I want to finish my blah, blah, blah situation, and then I'll be ready in June, you can work with that. Meaning maybe you have an option where people can save their spot with a deposit and then start in June or something. So the more you know about the person you're talking with, and the more you understand them, the more solutions there are, and the more likely you are to convert the sale. When you don't know what's going on for them, and they're not sharing, and you're not asking questions, and you're not leading with curiosity, it's really hard to convert the sale, because you're just kind of like working with very little information here. Okay, so the next tip is tip number 5 is to play out scenarios. So if they're like, okay, I don't know if this is right for me or not, how would they know if it's right? How would they know if it's not right? What would be the scenario if they did move forward? What would be the scenario if they didn't move forward? Which reasons do they like better? Or which scenario do they like better? Which has more potential? Which has more upside, right? Reviewing and playing out the options with someone could be really useful to help them see like, okay, what are my options and what do I want to do? Because again, your job is to help them not stay in indecision land and confusion land and overwhelm land. So playing out the scenarios is a good exercise. And then tip number 6 is to incorporate some reminder emails or texts before your calls to prevent ghosting and to improve prevent having no-shows. So if you don't already have any form of like automated email or text or something that's like, hey, your call's coming up, or can't wait to talk with you, or whatever, and extra bonus points, if you can add to those, maybe something that pre-nurtures them, gives them some value up front, maybe shows a testimonial or two, that can be really useful too, to help you. Well, 2 reasons. One, it helps the person come into the call more knowledgeable about what you do, and so it's not so new to them. And the newer it is to them, the harder it is to be converting the call, right? And converting the sale, because it's like new information, and they have to take it in, and they have to they're hearing for the first time what you do. So if you can have some pre-steps before the call where you do go through, here's the benefits, here's, what you can expect for our call, Here's some testimonials about the clients who I've worked with. That can help someone have more info to make their decision off of. And it can also help you feel like you're not, they're coming in so cold, having no idea what you do. Okay, and then the 7th tip is to nurture before, which I kind of did talk about, or I don't know what my notes say at this point. Okay, so we kind of already covered tip number 7. I kind of combined the reminder emails and texts with tip number 7, which is nurture beforehand. And then tip number 8 is use the 1 to 10 questions. So if you want to convert more sales, again, it comes down to understanding the person better and offering the right offer for them based on their needs, goals, what they're looking for, etc. And so one tip you can do is, if you've never used, on a scale of 1 to 10, like 1 being you feel like this offer isn't even a fit for you at all based on what I've just shared with you, 10 being this is something you probably want to do and it feels really aligned with what you're looking for, like where do you fall and why? Because we have to understand, anytime you're not booking a sale, it's either because they don't trust the process and offer, or they don't think that it will help them. They don't think you're the right service provider or coach to provide the benefits that they're looking for. So it's either a you thing, an offer thing. It's a them thing sometimes, like they don't think they're going to follow through. So we need to understand what will help them follow through, what helps them with accountability, how do they learn best, do they need more one-on-one attention, things like that. So a them thing, or circumstance thing. They think time, I don't have time, I don't have money, I have to ask my spouse, etc., etc. So those would be kind of the most common things you're going to hear about why someone wouldn't move forward. So what do we have to do to be able to, be able to help our person make a decision better? We have to understand those and find out which one is the biggest barrier for them. If knowing that if they do want to move forward and they do want to get support and they do need to make a change, which one of them, those reasons, is stopping them the most. And when we understand that, we can coach through it, because if you're a coach or service provider, your job is not to close the sale, convince them, beg for money. I hate those phrases. Beg for money is the worst thing I've ever heard for sales. Of course, you're not going to want to sell when you think it's begging for money. You are exchanging a service in exchange for money, yes, but it's not begging for money. You're giving a service that they want, right? If you're doing sales right. So my point is, we have to understand that to be able to coach through objections, not convince, not read a script and just, be a robot, but to understand and then come to a conclusion about what's the right next move. So I think a lot of you will see sales as a lot less intimidating. And this is bonus tip. If you really want to convert more sales, you got to believe in your sales process, and you got to believe in your offer, and you got to believe in the fact that sales is not having to be icky, convincing, begging, asking for money. You have to see it as a joint discussion to help someone come to a decision about their right next moves. And sometimes it will be your offer and sometimes it won't, but that is how you get really good at sales, when you're really curious and you want to help someone. So if you have any questions about sales, let me know. I'm going to be doing a re-recording because I've had it for a couple years now and I want to make some changes to it, to my 4 Steps of Client Attraction class in April, most likely. So if you do want to be kept in the loop about my upcoming free live class, it is going to come with a little cheat sheet of action steps you can take to get your next client or sale. Go ahead and put, we'll just say 4 steps in the chat, and I'll invite you to when I'm doing that. I got to figure out the date first. But anyways, I hope you have a great Friday. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.